Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes' Godbreaker. The man who rules the world takes on the Asgardian god of thunder in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes' Godbreaker at online booksellers today. In a previous video, I talked about where Gen X was going wrong in raising Gen Z. And in this video, I'm going to be dealing with one specific issue that Gen X is doing wrong in raising our kids, which is helicopter parenting. Now, when it comes down to Gen X, a lot of us either go two ways on parenting. We have a group of parents who go out here and don't really do much for our children and leave them to fend for themselves in places like daycare. And then we have some Gen Xers who go out here and overprotect their children by being helicopter parents. Now, a helicopter parent is a parent who basically hovers over their children and looks to protect them from practically everything that goes on in the world. Now, your helicopter parents, they came out of Gen X due to the way some of us were raised in latchkey homes, because during the time we grew up in the 80s and part of the early 90s, many Gen Xers, we were told, given a key, told to come home and take care of ourselves and wait for our parents to come home. And that could have been maybe at 5 o'clock if our parents were working first shift, or maybe it could have been 8 o'clock if they were working second shift. And sometimes if they were working overtime, what would happen is we may not see our parents until maybe 10 or 11 at night, and sometimes we wouldn't see our parents until the next morning. And a lot of the younger Gen Xers, I believe, were filled with a lot of anxiety and fear as they were sitting at home. And I believe that anxiety and fear about being by themselves, by being young, because some kids were as young as 8 or 9 years old and had to go out and stay home by themselves and wait for their parents as part of the latchkey generation, and that can make a kid very anxious, and it can also lead to some emotional trauma. And I believe a lot of Gen Xers carry that emotional trauma of being on your own for hours, and that's something that makes them want to go out and try to overcompensate by overprotecting their children, not understanding the harm that they're doing by going out and trying to hover over their children and prevent them from going out and understanding the life experiences that would help them grow up. Now, many of the helicopter parents, again, these were Gen Xers who were in the house and they were filled with anxiety and as related to being by themselves and being very young. And now that they've grown up to become adults, they want to make sure that their kids are not alone, and they want to make sure that their kids are protected from many of the dangers they were exposed to when they were home alone. So you've got many Gen X kids who grow up to become adults, and these Gen X mothers and fathers, they want to make sure that their kids are safe, so they become the helicopter parent. And as they become the helicopter parent, they hover over their children and look for every small mistake that is made and look to protect their children from making mistakes that they made when they were younger, not understanding that by overprotecting the children, ironically, you're preventing kids from learning life lessons that will help them be able to grow up and be able to navigate life in the world. Because in order for a child to understand how to function in life, sometimes they have to fall down, sometimes they have to suffer cuts and scrapes. This is how a child builds a discipline and a resolve. Unfortunately, because we've got helicopter parents at places like the playground or places like the public school, what happens is that kids don't learn how to go out here and be problem solvers who can solve their own problems, or go out here and learn how to conflict resolve. Because the helicopter parent is constantly hovering over the child and looking to shield them from any sort of conflict, the child never learns how to develop their own conflict resolution skills. They never learn how to go out and solve their own problems, and they never learn how to work things out for themselves, because there's a parent always looking to pull them out of a situation. And by pulling the child out of situations, they never learn how to go out here and do things for themselves. So instead of raising a child who grows up to become an interdependent individual, the helicopter parent creates a codependent individual who they have all the power over. And as they have all the power over this child never has an incentive to go out here and try to do things for themselves, because every effort they try to make to do something for themselves, the helicopter parent hovers over the child and then comes and lands in front of them, preventing them from learning life lessons that will enable them to grow up to become a healthy adult. Now, the helicopter parent, as they're flying over the child, they're thinking they're preventing their child from being harmed by the world, but they can't see the harm that they're doing to their child, because when you hover over the child, what you're doing is making it where they never learn to become secure in themselves. And because they don't learn how to become secure in themselves, they never learn to build up any sort of internal character. And even worse, they never build up any sort of self-confidence. Because in order for a child to function in the world, they have to be able to trust that their parents believe in them. Because when their parents believe in them, this gives a child a sense of confidence to go out here on their own. And as they're going out here on their own, they're feeling comfortable about taking risks, because they know that their parents believe in them. And because they know their parents believe in them, they go out here and want to take risks. And as they take risks, they go out here and they socialize with others. And as they're socializing with others, they learn how to solve their own problems, work out their own conflicts, work out their own issues. These are things that children have to learn. Unfortunately, because many Gen Xers had a lot of trauma as related to these experiences, they think they have to protect their kids as related to these situations. So many of the helicopter parents, they don't want their kids to fall down. They don't want their kids to fail, but they don't understand that children have to fall down and scrape their knees. Children have to fail, because many of us Gen Xers, we did fall down. And because some of us had good silent generation parents, they just taught us to go and wash the blood off and continue to keep playing. And that gave us the confidence to go out here and be able to function in a healthy fashion. And it gave many of us, again, more confidence to take risks, because some of us, when we fell off the BMX bike, what we did was go and pick the bike up, get back on, and start riding again. Or if we were riding a skateboard, we would get up and scrape and dust ourselves off. And some kids in Gen X, we would just laugh about it. But we don't allow our kids to do this, because there's some people who have issues with it. And again, the helicopter parent, it doesn't help the kids, because you're denying him an opportunity, or her an opportunity, to build up their character, because you have to build your character in order to survive in the world. That's something that Gen X was one of the most positive things out of all the hardships we had, is we learned how to get up and persevere. And that was one of the things that we're denying our kids. We have to understand that, yeah, our kids need to learn how to have discipline and resolve, because they've got to go out in a world that is hard, a world that's rough. And one of the worst things we are doing is being the helicopter parent who wants to just get in there every time our kids start crying, or our kids fall down, or our kids fail at something in life. We want to get in and go talk to a teacher. We want to go out here and try to solve their problems. And we can't solve their problems. We can give them advice on how to solve the problem, because what a parent's job is not to go out here and do things for your kids, but help your kids work things out and help them work through their problems. Because we have to understand, yes, we had a lot of hard issues when we were growing up as kids. We wound up falling down, we wound up failing, things didn't work out like we wanted. I mean, I know I've had many experiences as an adolescent and a teenager that didn't go right, but I learned my lesson from those experiences, and I learned how to persevere. And that's what I would want to teach a son or daughter if I had kids. Yeah, things are going to be hard. People are going to be out here, and you can't go to your parents every day to solve your problems, because the helicopter parents, when they're little kids, they're constantly going to the teacher and telling them when the kids fail that they shouldn't fail them. They're the ones who tell their kids whenever there's a problem, they're gonna go out here and solve it. And whenever their kids start to become older, what happens is some of these kids, these are the same parents who are going with their children to a job interview. And again, this is not helping your son or daughter, because when you're gone, these kids are not going to learn how to be able to do anything on their own, because a child who has to have his mommy or daddy going to a job interview, that doesn't help that kid learn how to go out here and get their own stuff. No, a father and a mother can put in a word for a kid, but they've got to learn how to sell themselves in that job interview. And this is a mistake that the helicopter parents do. They think, oh, if I do stuff for their kids, it'll help them out. No, you're hurting that kid, because you're not going to be there for those kids when they get older, and they have to learn to take ownership and responsibility for themselves, like men and women, because that was what we were taught. And we're supposed to be preparing these children for manhood and preparing these children for womanhood. And when we go out here and we start doing things for our kids and watching over them excessively, we're not teaching them how to go out here and do things on their own. And what this shows is, again, is a lack of faith, because the Most High is the one watching our kids, and we have to trust Him as we trust those kids to be able to do things for themselves. Yes, children are going to make mistakes. Yes, children are going to wind up messing up here and there. But the whole thing is that children have to learn. And sometimes learning has some painful lessons. But the only way we can learn from those lessons is to experience that pain in order to grow. And this is something many Gen Xers are trying to shield their children from. They're trying to be the helicopter parent flying over their children. Unfortunately, when you're a helicopter parent flying over your children, you're setting them up to crash and burn when they become adults, because once they start to become codependent on you, what happens is they start looking for you to get them out of problems. And there are some problems in life that a parent just can't solve. There are some problems only a child can learn how to solve on their own, because there are certain problems only a child has to figure out for themselves. And you have to trust that they have learned enough from you and your guidance to go out here and be able to function in life. You have to trust that your kids can go and do for themselves. That's what you have to trust as related to things. And again, if you teach and prepare your children and you have faith in your ability as a parent, you don't need to be a helicopter parent. No, a parent who truly cares about their children. They understand there's a time when they have to stop looking over their children and trust them to be able to go out here and navigate life for themselves. So when I look at a lot of Gen X parents, a lot of them have an insecurity and a fear of looking out for their as related to their parenting skills. And because they have this insecurity and fear as related to their parenting skills, they don't trust their ability to parent, and that's why they become these helicopter parents who overcompensate, and these helicopter parents who are looking to, in some cases, be a Karen in the classroom or be the person who is just constantly there. But what they don't understand is that part of parenting is you have to have faith in yourself, trust in God, because not everybody's going to be perfect at parenting from day one. No, parenting has a learning curve. Parenting is a lot of work, but the helicopter parent, they really don't trust their ability, and they don't want to go through the pain of the learning curve because they had trauma, I believe, when they were the latchkey kid, and that trauma leads to them not understanding that there's going to be a learning curve to parenting, and that's one of the things that's leading to them coddling their sons and daughters, leading to them looking to overprotect their kids. And this overprotection, again, this leads to children who are anxious. Children are extremely insecure because if you don't trust your ability to parent, they don't trust your leadership at all. And this really hampers a child's confidence because that's what the helicopter parent does. They really hamper their children's ability to be confident, and they hamper their emotional security, and that leads to many children winding up on the road to becoming men and women in crisis. And this whole helicopter parenting, again, it sets kids up not to rise to their highest level, but sadly it sets children up to crash and burn and wind up becoming failures because their parents didn't believe in their ability to be a successful parent. Now, if you want to see me make more videos about the generation gaps, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my books on men's and women's issues such as the man crisis and the woman crisis, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback, John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed John Haynes series adventure. Pick up your copy of John Haynes at Death's Door at Amazon.com and other online booksellers everywhere.